We are back. The Fairness Doctrine. You're listening to the Cyberstation USA radio networks and our affiliates, Chuck Morse, along with Dr. Patrick O'Heffernan. And now we're joined by Dr. Judith Reisman, the author of Sexual Sabotage, available at Judith's website, which is judithreisman.com. Dr. Reisman has successfully spent an entire career laying the foundations for deconstructing the Kinsey myth. Her work uncovering and documenting systemic perversion by well-funded efforts in academia, politics, business, and the media shed light on what spawned the sexual from birth dogma that helped pollute our classrooms and institutions, our print and broadcast media, and indeed the Internet. Dr. Reisman, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Chuck. I just
pleasure.
sent you an article on Milton Diamond, the new request to legalize child pornography in order to lower rates of child sex abuse.
Oh, how charming. I don't happen to have it in front of me here, so could you give us a thumbnail on what it's about?
Well, yeah, just November 30th, it started to hit that one of the sex educators, Milton Diamond, who's retired from the University of Hawaii, he and his colleagues have produced research that tell us that actually if we legalize child pornography, we will reduce child sexual abuse.
Isn't that lovely?
Yeah.
And also, I mean, look, this is the sort of thing that people now are listening to this and they're shaking their heads and saying, that is ridiculous. How could anybody say something like that? But yet, when you have a respected academic making statements like that, often backed by the media and by big business, it sort of insinuates itself into our minds, and maybe 5 years down the road, maybe 10 years down the road, it sort of has a creepy way of norming itself.
Well, that's their point. I honestly certainly believe that. I mean, they're citing so-called research in Denmark and Japan, and it's now just been published in the Archives of Sexual Behavior. So all you folks out there who are just plebeian people, know that there's something very legitimate then about the idea of legalizing child pornography. That means letting children behave, sexually in pornography,
right,
as lowering, quote unquote, our rates of child sexual abuse.
Well, that certainly would take Alfred Kinsey and his group of people off the hook, given the fact that they were masturbating 2-month-old babies.
Yes, and Americans are still silly people. We are thinking that that's not really a good idea.
I think many of us still do. But one of the things that fascinates me about this, I mean, you've done yeoman's work in categorizing the perverse career of Alfred Kinsey and his immediate entourage. But I've always been interested in how it is that the establishment, media, business, how they promoted this. Did they know what it was about? Now, Patrick has said just before the break that all businesses care about is money, and I think that's a monstrous generalization. It borders on saying that us all Jews care about is money. But putting that aside,
no, it doesn't. Chuck,
I contend that I didn't say you.
Absolutely nothing.
I didn't say you said
totally
that, Patrick.
That.
I know that, and I didn't say you said that. I'm saying that that's what it feels like to me. It feels to me when I hear somebody make a comment that all businesses care about is money. I've heard, and I just wrote a book about the fact that it was none other than Marx who said that that's all Jews care about is money. That's their God. They worship money.
He spoke for himself.
He did, and I didn't say yes.
Me to Marx,
and I did not say
that the Communist Party and Russia and Cuba.
All right, listen. I didn't say, Patrick, that you said this. I'm saying that this is how I feel when I hear someone say this. No, you can't tell me that I'm wrong about how I feel.
No, you're.
What I feel when I hear someone make a statement like that about private business, that all they care about is money, is that it makes me feel that this is equivalent. I've heard the same equivalent comments made about that's all Jews care about is money. That is not what I'm not saying you said that. You didn't say it in that way, and I don't think you have that in you.
Absolutely
that is
not.
What that is to me. Now, getting back to Dr. Reisman. The fact that I'm wondering, first of all, because I don't think that businesses necessarily who were promoting Kinsey that were doing it for money. They might have been. I think there was something more going on. This is a much more complex issue.
Are you talking
that there were
about
philosophical
the
issues.
Rockefeller Institute?
Yeah,
that was
particularly.
funding them?
Yeah, the Rockefeller Institute, which funded them. Yes.
Yeah. No, I don't think at all that for them it was quote unquote, just money. I mean, the fact is that one of their key scientists said, to the powers above, this research is no good. The data are no good. And we need to investigate this. Why are we funding this man? And he just got promoted up the wazoo. I mean, I don't think that the Rockefellers, quote unquote, made money on Kinsey's work by any means.
They probably lost money from it. But why then would the Rockefeller family, which was the main, the almost the font of corporate capitalism, at least in people's minds, in this country, get so involved in something like this? And it obviously wasn't something they're going to make a buck off of, at least not right away. Maybe they were. I don't know.
Well, no. I mean, the fact is that we don't, a lot of what goes on in terms of the Rockefellers is rather secretive, But certainly, as far as I can see, their aims were more, shall we say, philosophical, or their aims were more deviant, really, it would be the word, because they ended up funneling Kinsey's fraudulent work into the laws through the American Law Institute Model Penal Code. So, I mean, those are all highly questionable issues. I mean, we can go into the whole history of the Rockefeller Foundation and what they have continued to fund and so forth. But what I see right now in the recent push by Milton Diamond and his colleagues to legalize child pornography by claiming that other countries do it and it's reduced child rape is just again an attempt to institute into our society what the academic pedophile movement has been trying to do for years. They tried at different points. They did it in 1977. They came out with tremendous effort thinking that they could legalize child pornography, actually requesting money from the Adult Video Association to do it. So my interest here is in saying to the American public, there's a lot that we can know. There's a lot we don't know about Rockefeller, for heaven's sakes. I mean, I'm not in on their private meetings. But there is a lot that we do know about the movement to sexualize children, to make them available in pornographic materials, and this Milton Diamond is very much part of that. I mean,
how systemic is it, Judith? I mean, how many of these so-called sexologists are, according to your research, are advocating it at this point?
Well, I would say that it's pretty much dominant, absolutely dominant, because when you look back at the history of the human sexuality field, what you're looking at is Kinsey is the Bible, and he gathers around him a group of men, sexy, hot guys, the good lookers that he collected to be his disciples, and then his disciples go out and disciple others, and they're anointing a whole field. The field didn't exist before
the thing
Kinsey.
that bothers me about it particularly is that all of this was presented as respectable science, and that Kinsey himself who was on the cover of Time magazine many times, and who was presented to the American public as kind of your average, Midwestern guy with a bow tie and a crew cut and very clean looking, very sanitized, a Republican. Yeah, that's right. And that this must have been something that some people had an inkling was really not what was going on. It was very much a grooming of a public image to legitimize and to make into, give the imprimatur of science this
and it still exists
work.
Today. Let's not forget Kinsey Institute's live and strong, in Indiana University, and putting out all sorts of bogus research about children still. They've just got a recent one out about a month and a half ago that's telling us that really the young kids are better off than their old parents because the young kids know that they should be using condoms. Well, the point is that their old parents are supposed to be having sex with each other, so they don't necessarily need condoms to prevent themselves, to prevent VD. And so, this bogus research continues by the Kinsey Institute. It continues to distort our society in very, very vile ways. And on top of that, they have a book out also on child sexuality and child, development. These people have no conscience whatsoever.
Judith, is there any possibility that the new Congress next year will have an investigation of Kinsey?
Oh, absolutely. That's one of the things, of course, that I'm really pushing for. We'd love to get those pictures of Kinsey's wife knitting those socks, sitting in that little rocking chair, alongside some of the other information that we now have about her changing the sheets when the sadomasochistic guys were doing their thing, at the Kinsey Institute.
Right.
So, yeah,
we need
to
a
have
pornography collection at the University of Indiana that is bigger than, I think, most in the world. All right, we're going to take a brief break, Judith. Dr. Judith Reisman is my guest. Sexual sabotage. We'll be back with Patrick O'Heffernan at drjudithreisman.com. Please stay tuned.